Well, welcome everyone. This is the 9th meeting of the Government Transition Advisory Committee's Voter and Candidate Education and Outreach Subcommittee. Today is Wednesday, July 31st, and we'll be here from 12 to 1:30 p.m. My name is Julia Meyer. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Engagement and Community Participation Manager for the transition. I do want to take a moment to welcome Guillermo, who is the new Transition Engagement Coordinator, first day on the job. And I want to re-welcome Ruby, who some of you met yesterday, who is a summer intern with the transition. So super enthused to have you both here. Our co-chairs, Bill and Jane, are going to facilitate today's meeting. Next slide, please. Before we get started, I'm just going to go over some meeting logistics. This meeting is being recorded for later viewing, and the copy of the recording will be posted on the city's transition webpage under past meetings and events. It is also being live streamed on YouTube. For today's meeting, we have closed captioning available. To access closed captioning, you can click on the CC button on the bottom of your screen. For GTAC members, please take this moment to change your chat settings to everyone so that those in attendance can view the chat. And please remember that the meeting chat is part of the public record. For community members listening in, we have the Zoom Q&A feature available. You could submit questions or comments through the Q&A function. We don't always live answer all the questions, but we do read them and they become part of the public meeting record. At today's meeting, we are not taking verbal public comment, but folks can submit public comment at any time by calling 311, by emailing us at transition@portlandoregon.gov, or by using the online public comment form on the transition website. And if you want to give verbal public comment, you can do so at the next full meeting of the Government Transition Advisory Committee, which is Wednesday, August 7th at 6 p.m. And you can sign up now on the transition website. With that, we'll go to the next slide and I'll turn it over to Bill to introduce today's agenda. Thank you. Bill, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I just welcomed everyone and just, say we look forward to, meeting both Guillermo and Ruby in person. So thanks for joining our good team. We have a full meeting agenda, and this includes subcommittee business where we'll approve minutes. And also we'll discuss 3 voter education strategies: hard to reach voters, broad voter education, and candidate education. And then we'll seek feedback, for new feedback, from our experiences at tabling events and at giving presentations with regard to the changes in the city and ranked choice voting. And then before we adjourn, we'll review our upcoming meetings. Next slide, if possible. And this outlines both Fred and Zach indicated that they're not able to join today. Otherwise, we look forward to our full participation. And just as a little business, we have minutes of our past meeting on June 27. So want to entertain comments on those minutes or a motion to approve. If I'm first going to ask for comments, I do have one that I want to wait and defer to others if they have comments. Okay, my question, and maybe this is for Julia and Jane, I noticed in the minutes, the welcome and introduction session notes that, Jane, you had a conflict and couldn't join. But I forget which meeting that is, because then the same minutes indicate that you are present and that you led the section on welcome and subcommittee business. So my question, I guess, Jane, is that Is this the meeting that you were unable to attend? I forget, or was it?
No, I was there, Bill. I was there, Bill. So,
Okay.
Thanks for catching that.
Yes. So maybe what we do is, would it be appropriate to delete the sentence that says Julia noted that, Bill will facilitate the meeting as Jane DeMarco has a conflict? I think we delete that sentence. Or maybe how we do it.
Bill, it's fine. I think if someone wants to move with the noted change that Jane was present, we can change the language.
Okay,
Thanks.
great. Okay, well, may I entertain a motion to approve the minutes as just revised?
So moved.
Do it.
Thank you, Jose. And do we have a second?
I'll do that too.
Oh, okay, Terry. Good. First and second, very much appreciated. So now may I entertain, I'll ask for all those in favor. Maybe we, for those present, we can raise our hands, and because I think we can see it visually. Okay, I think. Okay, do we have, okay, Juanita and Jose, I think your hand is raised too, is it? Okay, great, good. Okay, that's good. We will consider the minutes approved. So let's move to the next slide, working agreements. And these we've gone over before, but they're important to recognize at all our meetings. So our expectations for each other in discussions, we challenge ideas rather than individuals and offer constructive suggestions. We approach different opinions with curiosity and seek to understand. We keep the needs and concerns of the local community and the larger region at the forefront of our work. We arrive on time. Thank you, everyone. And to the best of our ability, are prepared. And let the group know in advance if we're unable to attend meetings. We seek to keep multitasking to a minimum and keep focus on the objectives of the meetings, where you can utilize the co-chairs to note additional topics. And we'll move to the next slide and I'll continue. And in addition, we honor the decisions of the group. We contribute to the overall success of our group by finding ways to participate that best meet our needs and your needs. And we step up and step back in order to collectively work to ensure that every member who wants to be heard is heard. We embrace conflict and work with our fellow members and staff to find ways to give each other feedback. And we'll aim to incorporate various feedback tools. And finally, we can use I statements and not ad hominem you statements. Next slide, please. And I think for this slide, we turn it over to Jane to address hard to reach voters. Jane.
That's correct. And thank you, Bill, so much for that nice introduction. So you will probably remember at our last meeting, this GTAC subcommittee, we requested a bit of a deeper dive into learning about the Focus Media campaign led by Hearts and Minds Communication, one of the partners in educating our citizens about voting. The Hearts and Minds campaign aims to reach voters who have historically faced systematic barriers to city decisions. These strategies have been made in close coordination and collaboration with the city and the county's broad education media efforts to ensure alignment of approaches in reaching all Portland voters. We've asked Hearts and Minds to introduce themselves. I think we have Megan here for sure, and present their work for about 10 minutes. And then we'll have about 20 minutes for questions and discussion. So now I'm turning it over with many thanks to Hearts and Minds in the embodiment of Megan.
Hi, thank you, Jane. Good afternoon, committee members. Thank you so much for having me. I believe that you've had a chance to see some of the materials I'm presenting today. So my plan is to go over this at a high level and leave lots of time for questions. But I can always go back to things if we feel like we want to cover it. If you could move the slides forward, that would be great. You can go forward one more too. Okay. Again, I'm Megan Nickler. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a strategic communications consultant with Hearts and Minds, and we are a collective of strategic and creative professionals who specialize in communications rooted in justice. Clearly, my whole team is not here, so there may be some questions if we get into the details that I'll need to follow up with you all on. On the next slide, our team is building an integrated citywide voter education campaign. Our goal is to inform voters about ranked choice voting and make sure that folks have the tools that they need for the November 2024 general election and outreach. So our focus is on the advertising campaign as well as materials to support the sub-grantees outreach efforts. So shifting forward, I did want to share a little bit about what's different about this campaign. I know that was an area of question for you all. And moving to the next slide. What's different about our campaign compared to the citywide campaign is exactly what Jane said. We're focused on historic voters who have faced historically systemic barriers to city decision-making. And so this list encompasses our key audiences. And moving forward to the next slide, the campaign will be in 6 languages. So that's also a difference. Our focus is really ensuring language access as well as access through very accessible materials and language. So I'll talk a little bit about how we approach this. We start all of our work by really rooting ourselves in discovery and research. And so we started our work with a landscape scan of other efforts across the country, as well as did some interviews with city officials and the co-director of Democracy Rising. And so through that, we learned that our audiences are facing some particular barriers and challenges when it comes to fully utilizing ranked choice voting. If you want to move our slides forward, I can talk a little bit about those. Some of the ones that I want to highlight in this slide is the fear of making mistakes while voting, especially for folks who have recently secured citizenship. They have a lot of nerves around voting, and that something new can feel really challenging. In general, there's also a lack of trust and clarity, a lack of trust for voters that needs to kind of be overcome, and continue to think about ways in which we can deepen and build that trust through our campaign. And then also a lack of clarity. I think that trusted and trained messengers are a really important part of this, so that voters can ask those questions. And that's where the sub-grantees work comes in. Moving us forward to the next slide. Some of the opportunities that we see is first and foremost really appealing to values. We saw in campaigns across the country that campaigns that focused on things like ease of use, transparency, fairness, and accountability were very effective campaigns. And so we wanted to make sure that those values come through in our work. We also wanted to deepen familiarity and do that in a way that drives action. So making sure that voters are seeing the resources, for example, the practice ballots, and familiarizing it in a way that feels like this is something that we do every day, because aspects of ranked choice voting are something that we do every day. And we wanted to make sure that we're able to simplify and help to reduce confusion with voters through that. Okay, moving us forward to the next slide. One way that we want to focus on deepening trust and overcoming any distrust is ensuring continuity with the city's campaign, and leveraging existing trust through the city seal and reiterating the visuals. I'm sorry that the slides are a little bit wonky. I can send this as a PDF afterwards if that's helpful. On the next slide, we also wanted to think about how we create materials that will resonate across audiences that share some lived experience, falling within the category of those who have faced historic barriers to access to city decision-making, and at the same time acknowledging that audiences across 6 languages are going to have very different experiences. So we wanted to think about ways in which we can create materials that will be engaging and welcoming across similarities and differences for our audience. And then this next slide, just one more way that we wanted to name that we want to build trust. While we are not working specifically on the city's website, we wanted to ensure that audiences are having a consistent experience. So we've been working closely with folks at the city to ensure that the materials we're creating will be reflected back on the website. When audiences land on the landing page coming from digital ads, they'll kind of see the same images, colors, those kinds of things, so that they have that trust and familiarity that they've seen the ads and they feel like this is a trusted source for us. So that's a little bit about how we got here with our approach. And then if you want to go to the next slide, I'll get into the way we actually approached the campaign and some of the tactical pieces. So this is a two-phase campaign. In the first phase, we're focused on confidence building and education. That comes across both in the creative and in the media buy. Within the media buy, we have more of a broad reach with our strategies, including radio. All of the radio is going to happen in this first phase so that we can kind of reach that broader audience. And then our goal is to do a more highly targeted push with digital ads in the second phase, driving folks to the website where they can use those practice ballots and kind of have that opportunity for deeper learning. On the next slide, please. So here's what it looks like, and these are not official ads yet. We are still in the approval process, but this is our most recent version. And I'll highlight a couple things that kind of tie back to the research that we did. So we do have a lot of emphasis on simplicity and keeping the language really simple. And we also wanted to highlight city candidates to kind of help folks and have that city seal here so that folks know this is something specific to the city of Portland. We include rank your vote on that third slide. That's something that is consistent with the city messaging. And that's where we have this community graphic that kind of shows the multiple languages on the end frame to help rally folks more about kind of discovering what RCV is all about. One other thing that I think I really like about this creative approach, and we kind of went through a couple different options, is it takes the point of view of the voter, and we have a really simplified version of a ballot shared here to, again, kind of show that ease of use, but also it starts to familiarize you with there's going to be something a little bit different about our ballot this year. Going on to the next slide. So our media buy starts in mid to late August, and we will go through Election Day. This is overlapping with the city and the county's paid campaigns that are running. And so we are working, as you mentioned, Jane, in coordination closely with both the city and the county. And on the next slide, this is a high-level look at the media buy and how we've split things up. You can see that we have a heavy focus on digital because we have audiences in multiple language. We want to make sure that we're making the most of the budget, and digital has the best opportunity to do that kind of highly targeted work. I'll also flag that we're going to start our search campaign a little bit earlier than the rest of the ads. So that's going to be the first thing that goes out in August, ensuring that if folks are seeing ads from the city or county's other campaigns, they're getting driven to the site. And search ads are, folks might know, the things that if you're searching in Google, they'll pop up at the top of your search. And then moving us forward here. This is Flight 1. The things I'll highlight about Flight 1, again, we're starting the search a little bit early, but you can see how the social ads and the display ads really give us an opportunity to reach audiences in Russian, Vietnamese, simplified Chinese, and traditional Chinese. Excuse me, that's a typo there. Our sixth language is not traditional Chinese, it's Korean. So I will update the slides for you all. But we'll be doing that in both the digital ads. And then for terrestrial radio and paid search, we're focused on English and Spanish with a partnership with iHeart and Bustos. We have some interviews that are part of that partnership where representatives of CBOs will be doing interviews that are then played across those channels. Going to the next slide, you see this is just a shorter and kind of more highly targeted campaign as far as the media tactics with that kind of heavy digital approach. And then moving us to the next slide. Lastly, I just wanted to name, I know there were some questions about our work with subgrantees. Hearts and Minds is focused on providing materials to support outreach for subgrantees. So we've developed talking points for outreach in kind of a one-pager fashion, but then we have a more designed one-pager that can be given out at events, tabling, those kinds of things. We also have a door hanger. So the thing that if you're doing door-to-door canvassing and door knocking, you can leave on a doorknob. And that's a really high level kind of simplified version of what you see on the one pager. So we did work with the subgrantees and presented the materials, got some review of those and feedback. Subgrantees are also reviewing the materials in the transcreated languages, and we're in the process of moving this into printing right now. And I think with that, I can wrap and we can shift to questions. If you want to move us forward one slide, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Yep, that's it.
Well, thank you, Megan. Really nicely done. And there are a couple of comments in the comment section that references the beauty of the communication materials. They're very compelling and the colors are amazing. So I think that we're at a stage right now that if anybody has any questions, they could raise their hands, and we have Jose immediately. So Jose, would you like to ask a question of Megan or a comment? And then we'll follow up with Destiny.
Yes, thank you. I like everything that's been put out, and I appreciate the efforts. I do want to know a little bit more. I saw the door knockers, a little bit more about what you're doing outside the typical media buys that we see all the time to reach people. And the door knockers make me think you're going to do door to door, but how is that going to be targeted? How is that process going to look like?
Yeah, I can't speak to the specific work of the subgrantees. Our role is really in providing those materials. Jennifer, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I'm glad to jump in. It's a great question, Jose. So Hearts and Minds, as you'll recall, is one of the subcontracted partners in the voter education contract. And as a broader part of that contract, there was the sub-grant opportunity. And so we have 11 nonprofit or community partners that each have their separate scopes of work and are doing and planning outreach and engagement, many of which include some door-to-door canvassing, and others, have, town halls and events. And so the materials Hearts and Minds team is preparing, like the door knocker materials will be available to those. They're planning that and kind of corresponding in coordination with those grantees around kind of a number of copies of that and how it will be used and whether it will be used. Not all of the grantees are going to be needing that. And probably all of them will use the one pager for sure, since they're all doing outreach and engagement activities. But I know in our next meeting, I think in September, Grace is coming back to share more of an update of what the grantees are doing, because right now they are really ramping up in planning and kind of scheduling those activities and events. And so in September, we'll definitely have, Grace and the team will have more to share back with the subcommittee on what's occurring.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jennifer. So nice to see you. And really good to hear that in September, it looks like we'll be able to kind of coalesce all the materials so that so that Jennifer could even say, okay, the door knock hanging material is going to reference different languages or be in different language is going out at this particular time. So because I think my sense from the team before is that the city does good outreach, but we miss people. And what we don't want to do this time is bring on Megan and Hearts and Minds and have them do fabulous work and then for it to fall through the cracks. So I know that talking with Grace and trying to kind of dovetail those things together will be smashing. So thanks, Jennifer. That's wonderful.
Jane, you're muted.
Oh God, honestly. Sorry, Destiny. Destiny, you are up next, sweets.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Jose. I also had that question of door hangers. I'm also interested if maybe we could get copies of that. Like, I would love to have copies on hand that are translated, or I could like cut up the door hanger myself and printed materials, like just to have that on hand, because again, like in my personal space. Like I do go to culturally based organizations or community culturally focused areas. And so I would just also just like to have that. That would be awesome. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. We've been working with the city to make sure that we can share the materials with any CBO that requests them. We've already got a couple people who have heard about this work and have started to email us and ask for those materials. So we can share them in English right now, but once we have all of the languages transcribed, the plan is to put them up on the website. So those will be available for folks to print out themselves.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Destiny, and thanks for a great answer. Megan, Bill, you get to take off your chair hat and ask a question. Go for it.
Oh, but thank you, Jane. But I see Juanita raised the question. I'll defer to Juanita and ask the question after Juanita.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Juanita.
Thank you, Bill. That's very nice. I guess I want to say that I think it's a great plan in terms of developing the materials independently and so ensuring the quality and the accessibility of the information. I think that's great. What I would like to know more about would be who are the 11, what do they call them, contractors, subgrantees. And I think that we already received that information.
Yeah, we did.
Maybe we could get some more information regarding the strategies that they're going to be utilizing and how they're going to focus on those communities. I know that we always try to reach those communities and we always somehow, have difficulties. So it would be very nice if we could have access to some of the strategies that the subgrantees are going to be utilizing, because that's the key piece. I think the materials are wonderful. I think they're going to be very helpful, but more about the strategies on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Juanita, and we look forward to seeing all of that at the next meeting. Can't wait. Okay, Bill, did you take your hand down? What is that about?
Oh, well, I think Julia is the master of ceremonies here, and she lowered my hand, so that's just fine. But I can't ask a question.
Oh, shoot, I did that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. No, quite appropriate. Megan, the city, has information that we've had on tabling events at different festivals, and I know our committee has given the city some comments on a draft. I think it's a 1- or 2-sided handout that will be, I think, is going to accompany the ballots when they're sent out, or it's something separate. They'll be in mailings. But how does your information juxtapose or compare to brochures that the city already has?
I think I will let Jennifer speak to the materials from the city. But for our outreach materials, we really focused on answering key questions for audiences. So what's going to be a little bit different about the ballot, some basics around where you can find more information and kind of learn more, with the goal of driving folks to do some practicing and digging in on the website. So the one pager that we've created and the door knocker, they stay pretty high level just to kind of bring people in, but give them enough information and start to familiarize them with the change that's coming.
Thank you very much. Jose, do you have sort of was your hand up and did it go away? It went away. So now we have James. James, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. I just wanted to directly answer that. Like Megan said, ours is a little bit different, but one of the biggest differences that you'll immediately notice is Hearts and Minds. Their stuff is a lot more focused on the RCV specific portion, specifically filling out the ballot and then what happens. The city and the county have larger concerns. So we're also doing RCV, but we have more information on the districts where you're voting. We are answering tabulation concerns in certain contexts, but not most contexts. And then with the county partners, we're doing a lot of, where do you get your ballot? What happens to it? Where do you get election night results? Stuff like that. So we're just a little bit more broad, not only in the audience, but also in the message and covering more of the transition than just the ranked choice voting portion.
Thank you, James. Does anyone else have any more questions or general observations or thoughts about the Gaiety of Nations? Oh, Destiny, one more. I love the finger. Glad it was not the middle one.
Thank you, Jane. I'm wondering if like there's a way to calculate the paid media strategies and the languages to see how many users interact with that. Obviously, the cost can then like hopefully lead up to another year of voter education in the future and like seeing how much engagement. I think this is a really good reflective tool if Hearts and Mind can provide it to the city and the county. So I just wanted to flag that.
I appreciate that, Destiny. Part of our scope of work and our plan is to provide regular reports to the city, including kind of an overall final report, which seems like a good potential touch point to come back to this committee and share what we've learned through that.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. Last call for any last minute thoughts. If not, you can always email them, stick them in chat, do what you like. I found this very interesting and very fascinating and also very impressive. So thank you very much, Megan and Jennifer and James, for that coordination and for the great presentation. I think we could go next to the next slide, please.
Yeah, thank you, Jane, and thank you, Megan and James and Jennifer, for that good discussion, because that outreach is really exciting to do, and we want to support you on that. Now we'll talk about broad voter education, and this subject includes an update from the auditor's office on the internship program and the ballot insert and the paid media plan, plus a discussion with the transition team on town halls that will take place this fall. And to begin, James, we'll let you lead off from, well, we don't need to let you. We look forward to you leading off from the city elections office.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for making the great sacrifice of allowing me to talk. I appreciate that. If we can go to the next slide. So I'll start off with talking about some of the audit office updates and then pass it over to the transition team to talk about some of the other stuff in broad voter education. I'm going to talk about three things mainly: our internship program. Incredibly excited about this program. It's been amazing. I'm very happy we're doing it. And then I'll give you an update on the ballot insert and some of the ads that we're doing. The paid media ads that we've added on for the fall. So first, just an overview of the internship program. You may be familiar from the initial plan that we presented to you all, that we put into the budget to have 2 voter education interns. These are undergraduate students in the region that showed a great deal of interest in doing election work and voter education. And their role primarily is to increase our capacity in doing voter education for events and to outreach to individuals. So they've been overworked, honestly, in staffing the events that we show up to. You know, they're being at Pride, they're at Juneteenth, they're at tons that you've seen them at the GTAC events that you've been at. You'll have seen them there. They're all over the place. So they've been incredible in helping us just expand that capacity in a way that we simply would not have had enough, human capital to get to all of this. And then the other part of the project, which I'm going to pass it off to each of them to sort of give you a very brief overview, is each of them is tasked with sort of an independent project that they do over the course of their 12-week program, that we help provide them the resources and connect them with who they need to. And then that project is intended to provide some unique addition to the voter education world. And I'm very excited about each of the projects that they're doing. And I think they'll have it done by the end of August when their internship ends, and we'll get to show you guys sort of a finished product. But for now, I'll pass it off to them. So Sophie, you can go ahead and start us off and give a brief overview of your project.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me. Like James said, my name is Sophie St. Jacques. I'm currently going into my sophomore year. I'm a political science student, and I'm super excited to get to work with you all and work on this. So for my independent project, I admittingly was not 100% sure what I wanted to do. But after a lot of the really wonderful one-on-ones I got to have with the auditor and the city auditor, and yeah, the deputy city administrator, Michael Jordan. It was really interesting, kind of eye-opening to me, just how intricate our local government is, and just really how complex but interesting it is. And I wouldn't have gotten that information if I hadn't had a one-on-one with them. And I had that because I had this internship. And so then it's made me start thinking, okay, how can we get this information to Portlanders in a way for them that is not all Portlanders are going through this internship, you know? And so like, how can we get this information to them in an understandable, accessible way? And so then I wanted to find a way to target specifically young people and young voters, but also have it accessible to a larger demographic. So I finally settled on a podcast. And so hopefully the main things of this podcast are going to be talking about voting. So specifically, how to vote, really the impact of voting. I have a really wonderful other voter ed counterpart in the county, and she has agreed to help me with this because Multnomah handles that. So I'm really excited to have that. I also want to kind of go through a little bit of local government 101 because there's a rising, I guess, kind of almost fear of government right now. And we can really, as the people on the ground closest to people, can hopefully help combat that or lessen that to some extent. And then also, you know, studies have shown that local government is the government that affects us day to day. I think one of our colleagues says, you know, your toilet flush, that's local government at action. And I love that because it's something we don't always think about. So I really want to kind of break down those barriers and make it more understandable for people. And then finally, specifically kind of youth engagement. I've had really wonderful interviews with, specifically in the auditor's office, the ombudsman, the deputy city clerk, and the archivist, and just how many different resources we as the city of Portland have for people. And that also, they don't necessarily have to be of a certain age. I know I have definitely been a little nervous to interact with some people because I'm younger. And I think that that's something that is not necessarily just specific to me and among young people. And, you know, people are always told to vote, but if they're not old enough to vote, how can they still impact local government? How can their voices be heard? And something I thought that was super interesting is, you know, when talking to the city clerk, there's not a minimum age to go to a city council meeting. There's not a minimum age to set a time to meet with your elected official. There's not a minimum age to testify. And I think that that's something that is information that may not always be, you know, ready on hand for people. And I think that if we can get that message out, hopefully we can build, I guess, passion or energy around certain issues that people are excited to talk about. And then hopefully we can get a little bit more engagement. And that's really what I've been doing. And so I just completed my interviews and I'm getting ready to start recording next week.
Thank you, Sophie. And then we'll jump over to Yusuf, and then I'll give a little analysis, and then we can open up to questions on the internship program. So Yusuf, go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Yusuf. I am currently at Portland State University. I'm in international policy. I'm going into my senior year. Hey, Will. For my own personal individual project, going into this, I thought, how can I get to the root of things? Because we're only going to have 10 weeks to get something done. And I was thinking of longevity. How can I make something that will be lasting, not just some paper I write, the research project I just proposed to James at the end of the week, at the end of the internship, give it to him and then go away. That's not what I wanted as I was going into this. So I thought of my own skill set and how I can utilize higher education in ranked choice votes specifically. Now, because Portland is having this whole shift into ranked choice voting, I wanted to see how I can have students, administrators, staff members in higher education, how they can be involved in the transition and in the shift. And which is why I decided obviously through the advice of James, Katie, Francisca, and many others who were helping me navigate where I should go, I decided to create a toolkit. And what this toolkit entailed was contingent on what professors wanted. I've had different interviews with different professors from Reed, from Portland State, from PCC, University of Portland, actually just recently. And this was over the course of 5 weeks. I've been interviewing and speaking with these professors, and they all agreed that it is a video that can encompass pretty much everything about ranked choice vote in a way where it's not just me spitting information at you, it's me explaining things with visuals, with me there. There was a study shown that when it comes to the perception of information and how people receive their knowledge, words alone can only do so much. It's about visual representations as well, which is why with this video, we plan on creating the storyboard. I was working on that with James, and I do have the storyboard ready, and hopefully I should start recording today. Actually, the first run is going to be today, which is exciting. But we're going to be sending it to different universities. I already have a list of contacts for different institutions, so they can post it to their newsletters. They can have professors present it in their own classrooms to their students. Kind of just have a hands-on learning experience with students so they understand exactly what is going on in the city that they live in. Now, it's not just going to cater towards higher education, it's also high school students, because a lot of times teachers and administrators in different high schools, they don't know how they can reach out to the city. They don't know how they can connect different information from city to high school, which is why this video is going to be very simple, very easy to use. We give it to them and they present it and they show it. Any questions asked, we also have links provided. It's basically a streamline of information that's given to where it appeals towards people and not just a barrage of information like hammered into people's heads. It's more of a video in which I'm there speaking to you, informing you, allowing you space to understand ranked choice vote specifically. So that is my individual project.
Great. Thank you so much to both of you. As you guys are aware, this is a pilot program. This is our first year having interns doing voter education. It's been going great, but it also is a pilot program. So we're planning to do a lot of analysis by the end of it. We're going to have them both be doing exit interviews, have surveys with the individuals that are involved in sort of managing their time and they themselves, so that we can figure out how to proceed going forward and how to make it better. Certainly any pilot program, we expect there to be hiccups and things to learn from, and we're pushing them to give us as much negative feedback as positive feedback. We already have it in the budget next year for the internship program, so it will continue to exist, but we just need to make sure it makes sense, and it is. So we're always open to feedback from you all as well. And there you go. We're happy to answer any questions, and I can give you a couple brief updates on some other media that we're putting out there. Great. It looks like if there are no questions, then we'll move forward, and the content that they're creating will be up on our vote site once it's in sort of a finished product, finished stage. So it'll be available on the sort of resources and additional education tiles. So, you know, look forward to having access to that and seeing kind of the finished product of what they did. And I'm really excited for that. So onto the ballot insert. As you know, the mailer is progressing along and will arrive in people's mailboxes by the end of September. In their actual ballot itself will be a ballot insert, which will be additional information. So we are working this week. We are working on a draft for that information of the content that will be in that. Our office, Deborah and I out of the city elections office, are doing the first draft of the content, and then we'll pass it to the transition team to sort of gauge it, and then include you all as we can once we have sort of an initial draft from the team. And then we'll need to have that off to the counties by the middle of September. So it's a later deadline than we have with the ballot with the mailer, because obviously it's arriving later and we just have to have it to them. We've gotten updated estimates. We think we're going to come well under budget on that. So we're not worried about that in any regard. And we've already talked about where we can, if that money makes sense, in more paid media in the fall or things like that. For the content, some of it will be borrowed from the mailer that you all reviewed, sort of the language on the RCV sections, but it will be quite different simply because there's a lot of information there you don't need inside of the ballot itself. They have a visual of the ballot already. They don't need another, sample ballot. They have the actual ballot in front of them, things like that. So that's part of what we're working on this week in figuring out exactly what is the most useful content to actually be in there. There'll be some additional instructions that we feel like aren't covered on the ballot itself, and those are the types of things that we'll have in. But we expect certainly even if we don't have a meeting in August or by the time we'll put the content that we have into an email and have it all out to you through Julia, so you can see it, even if it needs to be done before we get to another meeting. Any questions on the ballot insert? Awesome, then we're making great time. The last thing I want to talk about with Broadway Education is you were included in the initial email some drafts for ads that are going to be going on TriMet buses and in movie theaters. I welcome if you have feedback here. You know, some of those we've already sort of moved forward since last week. Some of those are already sort of, we're not going to use these necessarily, but some of them have moved up in priority. But I would love any of your feedback now if you have it, and then also fully open to receiving your feedback on that content for the next week or so. Even if we aren't able to, because we're moving pretty quickly with the TriMet stuff, it has to get out there to get on the TriMet stuff by mid-August. But even if we don't get your comments in time or your feedback, we still would like to hear it, because we're going to continue to do these other ads and utilize content similar. So hearing sort of your thoughts on it is incredibly helpful, just kind of shaping what we're doing in the fall. Yeah, as you noticed, thank you, Jose, for pointing that out. You may have noticed that one of the individuals that was just speaking to you is primarily featured in that. And the other person is the county's voter education intern. So we loved that we got to have a couple of interns out to do a photo shoot over there and involve them in this process. Once again, having these people involved has been a great part of the process. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions on that. Our timeline, like I said, we're looking at middle to the end of the month. These will get finalized with TriMet, and you'll start seeing them pop up all over on buses as sort of a full wrap on the outside, and then some of those will be inside ads on the inserts. That's why the ones that are bus puns kind of will make sense in the context of sitting on a bus and watching them. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions about the TriMet ads, and then those will similarly be used in movie theaters. Sort of but when you're sitting in a movie theater, you see the slides of ads before the previews start. It'll be in those, and we're in I would say about 85% of theaters in Portland. There's some minor theaters that don't really do that sort of thing, but we'll be in all the Regal, all the Cinemark, living room theaters, all that stuff will be in. So great, happy to answer any questions about that stuff. Yeah, Destiny.
Thank you, James. I'm looking at the drafts, and there's ones where it talks about like the movement of ranks, right? And like if you put multiple number one rankings, is that going to be in like a slide format in the movie? Is that like the movie theater example? And you're on.
Yes, that would be one of the things that we're doing that won't be in the buses, obviously, but will be in the movie theaters is a 15-second sort of slideshow with a voiceover. So this is one of the ones that we're less sure that it'll end up in the final, because it's a lot of information in the upfront, and 15 seconds is a very short period of time. So it's something we kind of put together, and we wanted to get feedback on, but it is one of the ones that we're leaning away from. And then being in that 15 seconds, we really kind of want them to see the ballot, know their interest voting is happening, kind of get some excitement, use a couple, coming to a ballot near you puns, because we love puns, and then give them the information where they need to go, QR code, a URL, and 311. So yes, that's the intention of that, but we're probably going to move away from it because we just think it's too much information.
Can I provide a follow-up comment? I totally agree. And also I feel like once you start talking about moving and things like that, people start asking more questions. And if I'm at a movie theater and I saw that, like, what the hell did I just watch? Sorry. I'm wondering if there was one slide that shows only rank candidates you support. I think maybe that could be the overall, like, pick your ranks 1, 2, 3, don't overvote. And then only, rank candidates you do support. If you don't support someone, don't go in the bubble. I think that might be just a little bit a better takeaway that I've seen people consume and digest easier, especially the more critical voters and community members.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that comment. Yeah, we some of these we felt like once we put them out there, we're like, this isn't a bite in the bite snack meal. This feels like more than that, and we can't. People aren't going to see a bus going by and learn all what they need to do about RCV in the 5 seconds they can see the bus. So yeah, I appreciate that comment. Bill?
James, I think I just answered my question. I think you're also going to have a insert or a mailer that you give to the post office that the post individuals are going to deliver to houses. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, so at last meeting, we showed you a draft of a 11 by 16 card that was, sorry, 6 by 11 card that would show up in every household's mailbox. And that's the mailer itself. So that will go out at the end of September. We expect it to arrive in mailboxes September 30th and forward.
A related idea, although it might cost something, is to have an insert in different newspapers.
Well, we do have some paid media in newspapers, and so the county is going to expand some of that to newspapers that were not covered over the summer. And then we also have had some internal conversations about we're going, there's still some money in play for voter education for paid media. And so we're having some conversations. The ones that have worked, so like Francisca's done a ton of work in like what postings have brought a lot of attention to our website and what postings have like brought very little, and analyze that and then expanding those. So like things like newsletters in neighborhoods seem to work really well. They're a huge bang for the buck, but like the Oregonian stuff, even though like a lot of people see it, it's also a lot more. So figuring out that, but yeah, absolutely, Bill, I appreciate that because we are looking at analyzing that and expanding it if it makes sense to do so. Okay, well, that's all I had then. Thank you so much, all of you. And remember, feel free to send comments for the next week or so. You can send them through Julia to get to us on any of the ad stuff that you received or anything else you've heard today. We're happy to hear it outside of this. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Can we get the next slide? And then Bill and I will be so kind of like, what do we do? Where are we? Thank you so much.
Okay, I think this is my part.
I think this is Jennifer. Yeah, go, Jennifer.
Yeah, so
Go, Jennifer.
So we wanted to share an update on the planning for our RCV town halls. So you'll recall this is also an important part of our strategy in getting information out and just interacting and reaching community members with the information and, just what's changing in this upcoming election. And so there are a total of 6 town halls and all of the dates have been confirmed. So we have 4 that are community focused town halls, 2 of which are in person and 2 of which are going to be virtual. And then we have two town halls that are specific to reaching City of Portland employees. And so those, so as I shared, all finalized dates, the dates and the locations are on this slide. I think the next couple of weeks we're working, the voter ed team is working, and then together with the transition team also to finalize the agenda and just the run of show and just kind of what's included for those town halls. We envision roughly, it'll be about a 60-minute event, except for the in-person events, which are going to be a little longer just to allow for mingling and kind of Q&A after the presentation. But it will focus on kind of that, I believe it's somewhere between a snack to meal size presentation on RCV, about 15 minutes or so, and then 15 minutes of focusing on doing a mock election. So Francisca kind of helping to coordinate and like lead the group through just practicing either online or with paper ballots for the in-person events, and then leave the second half of the hour just really open for Q&A. And so that's kind of roughly what it is. We still need to finalize and just confirm all of that. I think our question, glad to take questions, and a question for GTAC subcommittee members is the kind of both your interest and capacity and availability around potentially partnering in some of these events, particularly the the community town halls. If you have thoughts on how you would like to be involved, if you would like to be involved in helping with that, we'd love to have that discussion. So, yes, Jane.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. This is really, really exciting. And I'm sure this little subcommittee will have some ideas on how we can help you. And if you would like to give to Julia your list of what you think, how we can help best, that would be great. But my specific question is, who are the show people on your team that are going to song and dance the presentation?
Yeah.
Particularly the live ones. The in-person one takes a kind of a personality a little bit different from your basic Zoom persona. So I mean, who are you training? Who have you given tap dancing shoes to?
Well, one is in two are in this space. Well, actually, I'm not. Yeah. So James is going to be coordinating several of them as the presenter around the RCV portion, and Francisca will be coordinating and facilitating around the mock election portion, right? So those two pieces, and then for I think at least three of them, Scotty from the Multnomah County elections has volunteered and was very excited to support in that role. So yeah, so those are the current players. So.
Okay, they are beyond good. So that's great. And I can really understand Scotty's enthusiasm. He's totally has the personality for that. And James, we all know. So, Oscars, here we come.
Yeah, Destiny.
I love the idea of maybe potentially having some GTAC support because these are big presentations, especially in community. So I'd love to see the agenda. And I also want to flag for us GTAC folks that there's so many side conversations outside of voter education that we're having. So it would be great to just keep it solely focused on ranked choice voting or just voting in our city in general. Just a reminder for I know for myself and other members of GTAC, that would be great. And just a call out.
Yeah, you all are doing a lot in community. So yeah, thank you. William.
I'll third the expression of interest in supporting you on the community town halls. Jennifer, Jane just asked if you could email us with requests for how we can help, but if there are items that you have in your mind now just to have us thinking about how we can help, I'd welcome your thoughts right now. But if you want to wait until you send an email, that's just fine.
Yeah, I think for the in-person events, there's always usually more roles that are needed to help set up and support in those spaces. So I think just supporting folks for those events. I'm not sure of all the specific roles, but that's one thing that comes to mind. And I think something James, Francisca, and I have kind of talked about needing to talk more about is with the in-person events, particularly a way in if there's ways that we can do the RCV kind of mock election in a more participatory kind of engaging way, that perhaps gets kind of people moving or somehow more connected, that is welcome too. So maybe any initial thoughts on that or help in brainstorming. For both of those events, we are partnering with Kate's Ice Cream to be on site. So that's an exciting plus to be involved in those events, is there will be ice cream involved for the participants, as part of, when we're doing the mock election around the ice cream flavors, or if we choose another topic as well. So
that's a motivator, the ice cream.
Could we get the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, candidate education. You'll remember at the last meeting, we put James a little bit on the spot, or maybe he put himself on the spot. And he talked a little bit about the spring events for potential candidates and how they'd worked and what they'd learned from that. And then you're going to do a fall event, James, and you wanted to think a little bit more about it. So James is back to tell us about his thinking and how the fall event is coming together, what it will be, where it will be, and what you're going to hope to achieve. So James, you're on again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. We can go ahead and jump to the next slide. The first thing I want to talk about before we get to the fall event is I also mentioned, I guess, put myself on the spot about the survey that we had sent out about the candidate learning session and giving you guys some lessons learned, some feedback on that, and then how that's going to impact the next event that we're creating. Excuse me. So I have the data, the overview into a PowerPoint, but it's having some trouble sharing it. So I'm going to just have Julia email it around afterwards. And I think that's not a problem. And I'll just go over the high levels and I'm happy to clarify kind of what we got. So we had 4 main areas that we were looking at sort of getting feedback on in relation to the attendees at our learning sessions. We did 5 candidate learning sessions, 2 in January, and then 3 in the late spring, early summer timeframe. And they largely had the same content, but not quite exactly the same content. And one of the first lessons learned is we really didn't get as many respondents in the survey as we would have liked. We got about 30% of attendees took part in the survey, and I'd much rather have over 50%. Lots of times people are going to show up and they're not going to be interested in taking a survey. But we already have some lessons learned about making it a more fundamental part of the process. We can have them, take it there at the session or give us feedback, live at the session, and people tend to be more willing to do that. There's also we think we probably had too much going on in the survey. We were also asking for like general questions and open-ended feedback in addition to sort of the rankings of other issues. So we can also sort of streamline our survey in the future and hope to get more respondents in that way. But the 4 categories we were looking at is helpfulness, which was presented as a sort of, did you walk away from the session feeling as if it was helpful to you being a Portland City candidate? Overall, respondents rated us a 4.6 out of 5 for helpfulness. And over 73% of the participants said the sessions were very helpful. So we certainly felt we met our mark on just, are we doing something that people want, that need, that we feel like we're filling a gap that people are interested in? The next category was relevancy, as in, the information we covered, which was a lot. How relevant was it? So as a Portland City candidate, how relevant was the information provided to your specific needs and context? Participants rated this a 4.6 out of 5 as well. About 20% found the information to be relevant on our Likert scale, and about 80% found it to be very relevant. So almost 100% of people found it to be either relevant or very relevant. So we certainly feel like if there was missing information, at least the information that did show up was all things that people were already asking questions about and wanted to hear. The third category was quality. So it's how did you feel regarding the quality or the production value of the presentation you attended? Was it a good event? Was it a bad event? Whatever. This was a 4.3 out of 5 average from our participants. Then over 79% of participants found the presentation to be either high or very high quality. So a lot of people felt like it was good, and some of them were virtual, some of them were in person, and I think there was a different feel to those events. Some were, where the venue was for the in-person changed as well. So I think that probably was a factor in the ones that did not find it to be as high of a quality. And then about 7% found it on the lower end, of not the best of quality. So, they found something lacking in our presentation value. And then the last category was clarity. So how well the information that you received, was it clear and easy to understand, or was it confusing and difficult to understand? And this was our lowest score. It was still a 4.1 out of 5. So people still generally were happy, but this is the lowest score we got. And partly I imagine it's because there's just so much content, and things like campaign finance or or, single transfer value stuff, like that's just complex information. So it's difficult to put it in, and we're doing it for the first time ever. So we really kind of need to just keep practicing on how to categorize that in a way that is more clear and easy to understand to people. About 47% of those participants found that the information was presented in a clear and easy to understand way, while just over 7% found it to be a bit unclear. So again, it's still about that same percentage, just felt we were confusing the information more than was necessary. So those are the sort of the general responses. Like I said, I know it's easier when you can see it. So I'll send it to Julia, and I'm always happy to follow up on questions or any clarity. And then that will help to inform sort of the event we're doing forward. The biggest part of that is we're not going to do an event that size again this year. It was a lot to take in as a candidate. We really felt like it was something the candidates needed. We'll probably look to break it up more in the future and do smaller events and have like a campaign finance event, a filing for candidacy event, things like that. Do it a little bit more separated out. And that certainly informed our fall event, which I'll get to after some questions, but that's going to be a much smaller and much more specific event that we think is targeting a need that is still out there. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that information or clarify. Generally, we got pretty positive feedback and people were pretty happy. But we definitely could get better. Okay. Bill.
James, I could check on it, but are these, I think these sessions, am I correct that these sessions are recorded so that if I did not personally attend the session, I could go and listen and watch it?
That's correct. Each in January, and then again in the late spring, early summer session, we had one virtual session at each time, and the virtual sessions we recorded and then put those up on both the elections website and on the voter education, the /vote website, for people to find and watch on their own time. And we did have a number of people that is the way that they preferred to take a look at it. So yeah.
Good, thank you.
Okay, if there aren't other questions, then I'll move forward to the exciting part, our next event. So like I said, this is going to be much more focused, a smaller deal. So on September 20th, we're going to partner with Multnomah County Elections to do an event that is going to be targeted specifically at everyone who is qualified to be on the ballot. So it's not a general audience. Are you interested? We'll know by then the specific list of people who are going to be on the ballot. So the first thing will be that we're targeting just those individuals, or obviously if they have members of their campaign that they'd like to come along. One piece of it will be a tour, similar to the tour that most of you have all taken part of. So this event will be in the Multnomah County Elections Building, and it will end with a tour of the space that goes through, that Tim and Scotty do of how do ballots get counted, where they go. We think that's an important part of sort of dispelling fears and mistrust and misinformation out there about the ballot process, especially when it comes to ranked choice voting. So that's going to be a fundamental part of the event. And then prior to that, sticking on the theme of sort of trust and misinformation, we'll do something, a 1 hour event that will have a very brief presentation at the beginning of sort of a focus on, we're not going to do any campaign finance, we're not doing any filing information. We'll do just a sort of the changes in the election and how you can best talk about those changes to voters. So it'll be a little bit of a workshop experience of, if we did this with the media a month or so ago with the University of Oregon event, where we had media come and be like, how do you report on the event? And we did some kind of workshopping of how they might want to talk about RCV, and then we would kind of give feedback on, well, that's not quite how it works. So you might want to, use this word instead of this word, because that doesn't make sense. So we'll do sort of a similar thing with candidates about how they might talk with voters. And then, embedded in that obviously is going over what ranked choice voting is for anybody that somehow hasn't heard about it by then. And then most of that hour will be given to them to ask questions and then present to us the misinformation that, or just information, from their point of view that they've heard that they're concerned about, so that we can either correct it if it's wrong, or if it's correct, but there's a valid fear or something coming out of that, a concern, then we can help to talk about how we've developed solutions, or we've taken that into account, or how we're working to sort of avoid any potential problems there. So that's sort of the idea of the event and when it will happen. And that will be our last sort of candidate specific event that the city is directly putting on ourselves. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that. And then I will turn it over to somebody else after that. Yeah, Jane.
I love that you've learned from your earlier learning sessions, and what you're proposing for the 20th sounds perfect. I think if I were running for election, this is what I would want to do. And I'm glad it's only an hour. I'm glad it's in person, and they'll be fascinated to be at the Multnomah County voting headquarters. So I just want to congratulate you on the work. It's hard to do new things for the first time, and try to learn so that they get better. So I think that what we will hear on September the 21st is to how well it went, because you guys have done this and learned, and congratulations on the data. I think it's really important to collect the data. So I look forward to seeing the data emailed to us, because that's cool. So just a shout out to say good job. Thank you.
I appreciate that. We definitely are trying to talk to candidates and figure out what they want, because I think we probably went overboard in some of our earlier sessions. And so trying to make sure we get what they need and what they're interested in to get as much attendance as possible. Thank you.
I bet we could go to the next slide.
And the next slide is where Bill chimes in. So Shane, unless you'd like, that this is just the time for us to talk about new feedback that we've received from the community when we've given presentations on the changes, the upcoming elections for the city of Portland, or either giving presentations or at our tabling events. So would anyone like to share about their new experiences? Carrie, please.
Yeah, just a couple of comments on stuff that I've seen. Because I've done at this point a few tabling events, I've done a few presentations, and I've done some just general walking around in the world. And I think folks that come to the presentations are engaged and get a good education and come away probably with a good understanding roughly of where things are and what's happening. At the tabling events, people come up to the table and most of them have no idea that this is happening, and then come away with the impression that, oh, this is happening, and which I think is good. But to me, the tabling events and walking around in the world, the vast majority of people do not have any idea that this is coming. So I'm sort of interested, just in the context of the media effort that we just talked about, what those metrics might end up looking at, or what those targets are, and what the ultimate reach is going to be, because at the moment it's basically zero, and I'm just sort of curious as to where that's going to end up. So that's one feedback just generally. The other one, I would say, in all of our presentations and materials and ranked choice voting exercises are not going to prepare folks for the ballot when it arrives. When there are 20 candidates and 3 write-in lines, that's going to be a whole page of ovals. I guess when those ballots get printed, or when we know what they're going to look like, the sooner we can put a real version of it out into the public and to the world, I think that's going to be really helpful, because otherwise it's going to be a big surprise. So those are my 2 observations over the last month or 2.
Thank you, Terry. That's very informative and corresponds with feedback I've heard as well. Juanita. Juanita, I think you're on mute. Easy to do.
You're right. No, I think I share the comments that Terry just made in terms of a lot of the people who in the tabling situation, when they approach the tables, many of them don't know. And some of them do know, and you can tell because they come, but they already have some ideas and are very interested in learning. But again, the majority, sometimes they don't know, and some people don't. Well, anyway, so I also have done some of the presentations made in Spanish, and the people that attend those presentations are really willing to listen. They are very grateful that the city is making this effort to come into the community and making the presentations in a different language, because they said, and the feedback has been that they have not been experienced. They never had this experience before of the city coming out into these community organizations and providing information. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Francisca, with whom I did the last presentation in Spanish. And she has been a wonderful, doing wonderful follow-up. And she takes good notes, and she actually does follow-up and talks back to people and send them the information that they request. So there is a real need, and people want to know more, especially, like I said, in those communities where they were not, at least there's a perception or their feeling that they haven't been having access to information as to what's going on in the city. I also want to agree with what Joseph has mentioned in terms of presentations in person are more effective. And unfortunately, I understand that we don't have the resources to do more of those. But when you do the presentations in person and you're able to talk to a person and answer their questions, this is like a really motivator for them to learn more and they want more information. So those are basically my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Juanita. Jose.
Yes, I've been doing the policy discussions in the last month more. I think I did 2 or 3 of them, and I think there's still 1 left. And I just want to mention that those policy discussions, if anyone hasn't done them, they're basically just 1 or 2 GTAC members and a staff member, usually with 2 or 3 people that are usually leaders in some kind of organization that's a big community organization. And what we've been doing is going through the recommendations we've made and getting very specific feedback as to those pieces and what they think is missing, what they like, what they don't like, what would be better. And I know they're probably a lot more work for a lot less engagement, but I feel like I've gotten so much out of those. those people really seem to have a sense of connection and buy-in when you approach them like that. You can tell that they like that their opinions about this is being valued. And I do appreciate the staff taking lots of notes because it's just a conversation more than a presentation. And I'd recommend anyone who hasn't done one to try to do one because I've gotten a lot out of those, and I hope we continue to do those in the future with any other recommendations or things we talk about.
Thank you, Jose. I was zooming in on one that you moderated, and you really did engender some good feedback and comments from the participants. Do we have any other raised hands or comments? If I could briefly mention, I had the pleasure of being with Terry for a couple of the events. And I also found even if individuals didn't understand initially, it's definitely understandable. I could feel or see sort of a recognition come on or a light come on with regard to ranked choice voting. Oh, that's why you do your second choice and so forth. So really helpful to get the word out. So we'll move to upcoming meetings. And these are our upcoming meetings. Actually, the first one just tomorrow is a community listening session on the draft recommendations that we've made with regard to council committees. We also have a full GTAC meeting on August 7th, and the budget work group and districts and council operations subcommittee meets on August 27th. And our voter candidate education and outreach committee will meet in September, but there's a poll that Julia sent and asked us for feedback. So if you haven't completed that poll, in order to, this will help us find a date that works for, that is most convenient for us, please fill that out so we can schedule our next meeting. But it will be in September, but this will be very good. So this is a real informative meeting. Now we'll move to the next slide. And this is where I can soon adjourn the meeting, barring raised hands or additional comments for good of the order. Jane, I see you waving your hand. Is that good wishes, or would you like to say something?
Jane, you're muted.
You're still on mute.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before we go, I would just like to thank interns Youssef and Sophie and Ruby for being here and the great presentations from Youssef and Sophie. I hope they continue with their great work. Welcome to Guillermo. What a wonderful name. I love that Italian name. And as always, to trusted James and Jennifer who really just feel like they're part of the team, and they'll have to come live with us when this is all over. And also from Megan, from Hearts and Minds. I think that is going to be interesting work, and we hope to hear from Megan some more. And thanks to everybody else on the team for giving up their lunchtime and looking so perky and knowledgeable. I know it's just an act, but thank you. It was fabulous.
Jane, could not say it better. Yes, thank you, everyone. And for all of you that are giving us information, if there are ways that our subcommittee or GTAC can, shall we say, effectively or efficiently helpfully give you feedback, we want to do that. So this is a two-way communication street or multiple. So please, thank you for your participation in this meeting, and thank you all committee members for participating. So maybe we now adjourn the meeting, and we will have our next meeting in September.